How do you go from thin to fuller eyebrows? You want them a little fuller, but of course not too big, just enough to balance your face. So I'm here to show you how to do just that. You know, thin eyebrows is probably most of us, and it's much harder to make them a little fuller and make it look as natural as possible. So you definitely want to stick around and check out how I made these eyebrows a little bit fuller. Hey everybody, it's Jasmine, your brow expert. Thank you so much for joining me. So thin eyebrows. I think I'm always going to cover thin eyebrows because so many of us have that. I don't have thin eyebrows. I have very little eyebrows. I have a tiny bit up in the front, but it's an old tattoo that I microbladed a long time ago, which by the way, I do get into in my previous video. So you definitely want to check that out. And speaking of tattoo, this model actually has a little bit of an old faded tattoo. And I told her that actually served her really well because it serves as a guide, right? And she's lucky that the artist didn't go too wide because as we age, our face changes, our muscles move all over the place. So you want a thin tattoo to move with you, right? So, and you can build on that. I've been shaping eyebrows for over 25 years, and I'm still at the Anastasia Beverly Hills Salon. Thank you, some of you coming in, trusting me with the eyebrows. So it's been a pleasure meeting you. So without further ado, let's check out the model. So she does have a pretty brow line, a brow muscle that is. So I'm going to work around that, which is what I suggest all of you to do. Don't come up with something brand new on your eyebrows, meaning the brand new shape. You want to follow what you naturally are born with. It looks more realistic that way. And like I said, she's got that little ink underneath, which is perfect for her. So that's something that you might want to consider if you have thin eyebrows like this, right? And you keep it thin. So that way you can build on it. So I'm going to just build around it. And she does have it a little bit uneven on one side. So this side, I'm going to go a tiny bit higher. Um, but when I say higher, I mean just following her brow line and just purposefully going a tiny bit higher. Here, I'm just going right on the brow line because it's naturally just a tiny bit higher than the other side. Now, you might have not noticed that, but, and we all have one side a tiny bit higher than the other. We all know that, right? We know what side that is. So again, this side, I went higher, but I'm going right on the brow line. And did you notice that the shape is followed naturally, right? Now, I just used a powder to show you what I'm going to do, but typically, I like to use a pencil, especially for the clients that want to learn, because I believe the pencil is the easiest, especially to learn how to fill in your eyebrows. Again, I'm going above the brow line. I'm going to use a powder on myself because I have that concealer on underneath, so I don't want to disturb that too much. So if you're a powder user, then obviously you're gonna want to use your powder. And obviously, I'm behind her brows, right? So if this is a pencil, if you want to use a pencil, try this above the brow line, right? So I'm going to use a dark color so you could see the color. I'm going above and right hand, left eyebrow, and now imagine, can't even speak here. Imagine that there's a thin line inside or a thin eyebrow, and I just went a tiny bit above, and you can always build on it above here a tiny bit, okay, following the natural shape. Now on the other side, it is a little bit on the naturally it's slightly higher, right? But I'm not going to go too high, but I am still going to put color on there because if you put color on the brow line, you're still going to balance it with the color around the eyebrows with the other side. You still want color on there. Okay, so underneath, I went just a tiny bit lower because it's naturally higher, so you go a little bit lower here, but I'm still going to put the color here, right? Just right over here. And notice that I'm now laying the brush. If you're a brush user, you lay the brush down. If you're a pencil user, you lay the pencil down right here, okay? So then I'm just filling it in because I've already made that guideline above and below, and I'm just naturally filling in the eyebrows, right? So right here is my natural low side. So I want to go a little higher, higher, higher. And then what I did was I grabbed a lighter pencil because up in the front, she doesn't have much. And you notice that the brows are too far out, right? But I don't want to go too forward because it's going to look too unnatural. But I grabbed a lighter pencil. The first one was medium brown. This one is taupe. Now the medium brown can be darker and use it as an outline. But if you use a taupe, and you know what, just putting color on there makes it fuller. And I'm building on what she already has, going back and forth. You notice I'm going in these little circles too. You could do this with a brush. If you go in circles, you ensure that doesn't get too square. I'm not a really big square in the front brow person. I always like it a little bit softer right up in the front. And in order to do that, you can just do these little circles with the brush or the pencil. And you can always polish that up or clean it up later. The important thing is to just get the color on there. Mine, this needs to be a little bit higher, don't you think? This is why it's important to just get the color on there, and then you can really see this one needs to be higher, a little lower, but don't get too much into it. Meaning, don't get so much into lower, higher, because it just is a never ending, the brows start looking funnier. And I tell it to my clients all the time. Just work with what you have and just tweak a tiny bit. Okay, so the highlighter is very important. This is a pro pencil. It's the eyeshadow base one, I believe. I'm using just a different kind of highlighter, but any highlighter stick will work. I just want you to see. I'm not going to blend it in too much, so that way you can see it. And if you go on the top, it really shows off the eyebrows, right? You've seen this in my previous videos. Just going above the eyebrows really makes a big difference, right? That outline. Perfect. And then that brush, the brush that I go to for everyone almost, is the blending brush 18. Just go around it, right? And you're just cleaning it up. And this is the time where if it's too forward, that's the time to go around the eyebrows. Okay, so right over here. And that is all you need. I'm not going to blend in mine too much because, again, I want you to see this. I want you to see the fact that it's still the same shape, but just puffed out, a little bigger. And you notice that it's just always going around the natural shape. Okay, and when I say around, imagine a circle or a dot and go around the circle. Or imagine the line and you go, you're outlining the line, but just a little bit outside. And I've used this analogy before. Some of you know what I mean is the coloring books, right? I think there's still coloring books out there. You do they outline and then you fill it inside the image. So just keep imagining those things because some of you might be thinking, oh, I'm not an artist like you. But all of us can outline, draw, but just try not to draw in one continuous line. Meaning, like, don't try to do this one long line around it. Just stroke it around because our hand will bounce. And so you're not going to get that perfect. And pressure is everything. I might have not mentioned that earlier, but if you press hard, you're going to get it darker. If you press medium, you're going to get a medium tone. So the tone can change. Can be everything, right? You might use the wrong color, or you think you're using the wrong color, but if you just press lightly, you'd be surprised how natural it can be, like this eyebrow. So this is my favorite before and after because it just makes such a big difference. So what do you think? Do you think you could make your thin eyebrows a little fuller? I hope you can. And just remember, a little goes a long way. You don't need to get into it too much. Like I said, the more you spend time in trying to even them out, get them fuller, it just starts looking darker and it just doesn't make sense. Sometimes you can put the highlighter around the eyebrows first to see how full you want the brows to look, right? And I use different techniques. So many of us prefer to use pencil or powder. It doesn't matter which. It's what matters is what's easiest for you, but I always suggest try it with the pencil first. It's the easiest to learn the shape because the shape is always the hardest. And highlighter helps, especially above the eyebrows. A lot of times we forget the above and you'd be surprised how much fuller and thicker your brows look just applying a little bit of highlighter up there. Even on me, you can see, I didn't blend it too much. You can see the outline of my eyebrows much better and how much fuller it can look just by putting a little bit of highlighter up there. Try those tips out. Let me know if it has helped. Let me know if you've shared this with someone because I'm always curious about that as well because we know people with thin eyebrows, right? And don't worry, I will be listing all of these products in the descriptions, but I also tag them. It does help me if you purchase them through that way. But you know what? All the things will be written down, including my makeup, my blush, my lipstick, all of that will be listed in the descriptions and tagged. Thank you so much for your time and the comments, your engagement on YouTube. All this helps, and I will see you guys next week.